Mill Creek was the kind of place where everyone knew your name, where neighbors gathered on porches, kids rode bikes until dusk, and nothing ever truly went wrong. Until it did. The first body was found on a cold October morning. Sarah Whitmore, a beloved schoolteacher, lifeless in her own home, the door unlocked, a chilling note resting on her chest. "Do you see it now?" The town thought it was a random act of violence. But that was only the beginning. Detective Mara Collins had seen her share of crime, but nothing like this. The second victim came just days later. Ben Carter, the local mechanic, known for fixing anyone's car without asking for a dime. Same scene, same chilling note. Text on screen, 2 down. How many will it take? The town's panic rippled through schools, churches, grocery stores. Locks were changed, windows were barred, but no one could stop what was coming. Emily Rhodes, a young reporter at the Mill Creek Gazette, smelled a story that went deeper than police briefings. While the town braced for impact, Emily dug into the past. She uncovered something the police had missed. Sarah and Ben were both connected to a tragic car accident 15 years earlier, one that claimed the life of a teenage boy, a case the town had quietly buried. Emily knew this wasn't random. This was revenge. He watched from the shadows. To the town, he was invisible, but in his mind, he was their reckoning. He studied their routines, their sins, their buried guilt. In the quiet hours, his thoughts twisted. They all think they've moved on. They all think they're safe. But I remember everything. As police flooded the streets and the media circled like vultures, the town fractured. Friends turned to suspicion. Families turned inward. Detective Collins worked around the clock, but the killer was always 2 steps ahead. Every time they closed in, another body fell. By the third victim, 17-year-old Hannah Myers, it was no longer about solving a case. It was about saving a town teetering on the edge of collapse. Emily's investigation led her to an old case file, one that had been quietly sealed. 15 years ago, a drunk driving crash killed Matthew Blake, a teenage boy. His death tore the town apart, but no one was ever charged. Sarah, Ben, Hannah's father, they were all there that night. The pattern was no coincidence. Emily's heart pounded. Who else had been at that crash? And who was next? Detective Collins received an anonymous letter, slipped under her door. Text on screen, "If you want to understand me, go back to where it all ended." It was a dare, a taunt, but it was also a lead. The old crash site, a desolate stretch of road on the edge of the woods, became ground zero for the investigation. Mara and Emily found themselves at the crash site as dusk fell. Old tire marks still scarred the pavement, but something else caught their eye: fresh footprints leading into the woods. Their flashlights cut through the trees as the air grew colder, heavier. They weren't alone. The killer wasn't a stranger. He was someone the town had overlooked for years. Luke Blake, Matthew's younger brother. Just 12 when the crash took his brother. Now, in his late 20s, invisible in plain sight. He had watched the people responsible live their lives, have families, laugh in the streets, while his own family was shattered. And now he wanted them to pay. Mara and Emily raced back to town, but Luke was already there. His next target, Pastor James, the man who had covered up the accident to protect the town's reputation. Inside the church, the final confrontation unfolded. Mara pleaded with Luke, trying to reach whatever was left of the boy he had once been. For a moment, it seemed to work, but then a single fatal shot echoed through the chapel. In the aftermath, Mill Creek was a different place. The killer was dead, but the wounds he left behind ran deep. Detective Collins filed her report, her hands shaking. Emily wrote her story, knowing it would haunt her forever. The town would heal, yes, but it would never be the same. In a box at the police station, the killer's journals were stored away, pages filled with grief, rage, and the slow unraveling of a mind twisted by loss. "They never saw me," one entry read, "but I saw them. Even now, late at night, some in Mill Creek swear they hear footsteps in the dark. A reminder that monsters aren't born, they're made." As the town mourned, Mara received an unexpected visitor. Evelyn Carter, Ben's widow. With trembling hands, Evelyn confessed something she'd hidden for years. On the night of the crash, she was in the car too, but fled the scene before police arrived. She had spent 15 years living with the guilt, certain no one knew, but someone had known. Luke Blake. The killer's obsession ran deeper than anyone realized. Emily, still reeling from the church shooting, received an anonymous email. Attached was a grainy, black and white surveillance footage from the night of the final murder. In the corner of the screen, just before the fatal shot, another figure moved in the shadows. Someone the police had missed. Luke wasn't working alone. Detective Collins dove back into the case files, looking for anyone with ties to Luke. Her search led her to Travis Cole, Matthew Blake's childhood best friend, a man with a long history of arrests and a bone-deep hatred of the town that turned its back on him. Was Travis the silent hand behind Luke's rage? And if so, where was he now? A break-in at the Mill Creek Gazette shook Emily to the core. Her office was ransacked, files stolen, and a single message was scrawled on the wall in red paint. Text on screen, "You're telling the wrong story." Emily knew now this wasn't over. Mara's investigation unearthed more skeletons in the town's closet. She discovered that the pastor, the mayor, and the police chief had orchestrated the cover-up all those years ago, bribing the coroner, silencing witnesses, and feeding the town a lie to preserve its image. Luke's rampage was revenge. But Travis? His motive was different, to expose the rot at the town's core. Emily's phone rang in the dead of night. A voice, low, raspy, untraceable, whispered, "Tick-tock, Emily." The clock's still running. She wasn't just reporting on the story. She was now a target. The hunter had become the hunted. Detective Collins set a trap. She leaked false information to the press, suggesting the police were close to identifying Luke's accomplice. That night, Travis took the bait. Under the cover of darkness, Collins and her team followed him through the woods, hearts pounding, radios silent. But Travis had laid a trap of his own. The pursuit ended at an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. Inside, flickering lights illuminated a chilling scene. Walls plastered with photos of the victims, maps, news clippings, and in the center, a makeshift throne where Travis waited, gun in hand. Emily arrived just as Collins moved in. The final confrontation had begun. Travis offered a deal. He'd surrender, but only if the truth was broadcast live to the town. Emily, torn between fear and duty, agreed. As the cameras rolled, Travis confessed everything. The cover-up, the lies, the betrayal. For the first time, the town saw the face of its real enemy. Not the man with the gun, but the leaders they had trusted. In the weeks that followed, Mill Creek was forced to confront itself. The police chief resigned. The mayor stepped down. The pastor left in disgrace. Emily's articles sparked statewide investigations. Collins, though weary and scarred, finally allowed herself a moment of rest. And the town? It began the slow, painful process of healing. But scars like these never fully fade. Emily sat alone in her apartment, the glow of her laptop reflecting in her eyes. She had exposed the town's darkest secrets, but at a price. Her friends avoided her. Her editor warned her to back off. And her family? They begged her to leave town. But Emily couldn't stop, because one name still haunted her files. Mason Blake, Luke and Matthew's father, a man who disappeared right after the crash. Mara reopened the old missing persons file. Mason Blake was last seen the week after Matthew's funeral, packing a suitcase, cashing out his bank account, and driving west. No body was ever found. No trace left behind. But when Emily received an unmarked envelope with a photo of Mason standing outside a motel just 2 days ago, they realized Mason Blake was alive. Emily and Mara tracked Mason to a crumbling roadside motel on the edge of the next county. Inside room 12, they found cigarette butts, half-empty whiskey bottles, and a wall covered in news clippings of Mill Creek. Mason had been watching them all along. Mason Blake wasn't just running from grief. He had been orchestrating it. Luke's rage, Travis's plans. Mason had fueled it all from the shadows, feeding them names, secrets, and targets. The town hadn't been terrorized by one man. It had been dismantled by a family. Mara demanded to know why. Mason's answer came in a bitter whisper. They buried my son, but they never buried their guilt. He claimed he tried to bring the truth to light years ago, but the town silenced him, threatened him, drove him out. Now, he said it was his turn to destroy them, piece by piece. Emily was torn. Her reporting had cracked the case wide open. But Mason wanted her to publish one last story. A confession letter, written by him, naming names, calling out sins, and lighting a final match under the town. Emily faced a choice. Tell the story and set fire to everything, or bury the truth to protect what little peace remained. Detective Collins sat in her car outside her daughter's school, hands shaking. She had devoted her life to protecting this town. But now she realized she had been protecting a lie. For the first time in 20 years, Mara Collins wept in her patrol car, watching the sun sink behind the trees. The final blow came not from a gun or a knife, but from a match. Late one night, the town hall erupted in flames. By morning, the mayor's office, the police archives, and the church records were reduced to ash. It was Mason's last message. If you won't face the past, I'll erase it. Emily met Mason at the old bridge where Matthew died. The air was cold. Mason looked tired, as if all the rage had drained out of him. I wanted them to feel what I felt, he murmured. Emily's voice trembled. They do now. For the first time in years, Mason wept and surrendered. Mara led Mason away in handcuffs as dawn broke over Mill Creek. Emily watched from a distance, notebook in hand, unsure if she'd ever write another word. The town had survived, but it was forever changed. And as the sun rose, the scars of Mill Creek glowed in the light. Wounds of guilt, loss, and the terrible cost of buried truths. Emily walked the streets of Mill Creek, notebook closed for the first time in months. The town was quieter now, but not at peace. Families were divided, businesses shuttered, and at night, the streets seemed to whisper with the names of the dead. Emily realized, even with Mason gone, the town was haunted. Not by him, but by the ghosts people tried to forget. Detective Collins faced a media storm. Reporters swarmed the police station. Protesters gathered at City Hall. The governor announced an independent investigation into the department's failures. Collins, once the town's hero, now stood alone, her badge trembling in her hand. While the town focused on Mason, they missed something crucial. Travis Cole was missing. His cell was empty. His guard was unconscious. The man who had once pulled strings from the shadows was back in the wind, and Emily knew he wouldn't stay silent for long. Evelyn Carter came forward with one last secret. 15 years ago, she hadn't just fled the crash. She'd bribed the first responding officer to bury the truth. That officer? Colin's late husband. Mara was shattered. The betrayal ran deeper than she'd ever known. Emily received a package in the mail. Inside were letters, dozens of them, written by Mason, Luke, and Matthew over the years. They weren't filled with hate. They were filled with pain. Loneliness, regret, and desperate longing for a town to remember them as more than monsters. Emily saw them now not just as killers, but as broken boys shaped by the town that failed them. A bitter divide split Mill Creek. Some saw Mason as a villain, others a martyr. Fights broke out at council meetings. Businesses were vandalized. Neighbors turned on neighbors. Emily realized the real terror wasn't what Mason did. It was what he left behind. Detective Collins and Emily formed an uneasy alliance. They both wanted to find Travis Cole before he struck again. But as they dug deeper, they discovered Travis had been working with someone inside the department. Someone still protecting him. One night, Emily arrived home to find her apartment door ajar. Inside, the lights were off. Her laptop was gone. And on the table, a single Polaroid sat. A photo of her sleeping, taken from outside her window. Travis wasn't just back. He was watching her. The next attack came without warning. A gas station explosion ripped through Main Street, injuring 6 and killing the owner, an old friend of Collins. Spray painted on the sidewalk were the chilling words, "Forget nothing, Emily and Collins met in the quiet of the old church. They both knew the truth. Travis was preparing his final act. The question was no longer if he would strike. It was when, where, and how many lives he would shatter on his way out. Emily sat in her apartment, surrounded by half-written notes. Outside, Mill Creek had fallen into an uneasy hush. People boarded up shops. The sheriff's department doubled patrols. Emily's phone buzzed with an anonymous message. "The end begins tonight." Detective Collins followed a lead to the edge of Mill Creek Woods. There, beneath the old water tower, she found evidence of a hidden camp. Food wrappers, footprints, and a burner phone. Travis was living here, close, patient, and waiting. Emily made a decision. She sat down at her typewriter and began writing an open letter to the town. A raw confession of everything she had uncovered, from the town's buried sins to Mason and Travis's twisted vendetta. She hit publish at 3 a.m., not knowing if she'd live to see the fallout. Collins devised a trap. She arranged a fake town council meeting, leaking word that several of the town's leaders would be present. It was risky, but they were running out of time, and they knew Travis wouldn't resist. As the town gathered inside the church, Emily stood in the back, heart racing. She saw him, just a flicker, Travis, slipping through the side door. Her breath caught. She reached for her phone, and then the power cut out. Panic erupted. The church plunged into darkness. Screams echoed through the hall. Collins drew her weapon, shouting for calm, while Emily darted toward the side exit, chasing the only figure who wasn't afraid. Emily cornered Travis behind the church, breathless and shaking. He was thinner, almost ghost-like, but his eyes burned with a cold, unwavering focus. "Do you even remember why you started this?" she whispered. Travis smiled faintly. "To make them remember." Collins arrived, gun raised, finger trembling on the trigger. Emily stood between them. For one breathless moment, everything hung in the balance. Justice, revenge, survival. And then Travis did something no one expected. He dropped to his knees and whispered, "It's over." The town watched as Travis Cole was led through the streets in handcuffs. There was no applause, no cheers, only a heavy, exhausted silence. Emily realized that sometimes justice didn't feel like victory. Weeks later, Mill Creek tried to stitch itself back together. Families grieved. Businesses reopened. The church was rebuilt. But Emily knew the truth. The town would never be what it was. Because once you look inside the mind of a killer, you never walk away unchanged. Excellent. Here's 10 more dark, emotionally charged, and suspenseful chapters too. Emily received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a letter, written in Travis Cole's delicate, neat handwriting. "You may have ended the story, Emily, but stories have a way of starting again." Her blood ran cold. Detective Collins sat alone in her car, parked outside the ruined church. The case was over, but inside her, something had broken. She stared at her badge in the rearview mirror, wondering if she was still the woman who had sworn to protect this town. A new attack shattered the uneasy calm. A young woman was found in the woods, injured but alive, with the same chilling words carved into a tree nearby. "Forget nothing." Travis was behind bars, but someone was carrying on his legacy. Emily awoke to a tapping at her window. She crept toward it, heart racing. But when she flung open the curtains, there was no one there. Only a single red ribbon tied to the tree outside. The same kind Mason once used to mark his victims. Collins visited Travis in prison. For the first time, she saw him up close. No handcuffs, no courtroom walls between them. They struck a dangerous deal. He would help her identify the copycat. But in exchange, he wanted one thing: a public interview with Emily. Emily sat across from Travis in the prison interview room. He studied her like a puzzle, eyes glinting with amusement. "Tell me, Emily, why do you really write these stories? Is it for the victims or for you?" For the first time, Emily was left speechless. Clues pointed to someone Emily never suspected. Owen, the quiet young man who worked at the gas station. He was obsessed with the case and had been in the background of nearly every crime scene photo Emily reviewed. He wasn't just watching the story unfold. He was writing himself into it. Collins and Emily rushed to Owen's home. Inside, they found walls plastered with news clippings, maps of the town, and photos of Emily herself. A single note was pinned above his desk. Tonight, the town fell under lockdown as police spread out across Mill Creek. Emily followed her instincts to the woods, where she found Owen, standing at the edge of the old quarry, staring into the darkness. He turned, a sad smile on his face. "I just wanted to be remembered." Owen was arrested without a fight. The town exhaled, but Emily wondered, was this the end? Or had something been unleashed in Mill Creek that could never truly be buried? As she looked out over the town, Emily knew one thing. The mind of a killer was never just one person. It was a sickness that could infect them all. The courthouse was packed. Reporters lined the steps. Owen sat at the defendant's table, head bowed, while Emily watched from the back. The town demanded answers, but as the evidence unfolded, doubt crept in. Was Owen a mastermind, or just a pawn? Behind prison walls, Travis thrived. His fan mail exploded. His following grew online. People calling him a prophet, a misunderstood genius, a truth teller. And Travis, ever the puppeteer, fed their obsession with cryptic statements from his cell. Emily sat at her desk, staring at the blinking cursor. The articles she had written made her a star, but they also made Owen a celebrity and gave Travis exactly what he wanted: immortality. The weight of it crushed her. Was she helping, or only feeding the darkness? Detective Collins paced the evidence room. Something was wrong. Key items from the original Travis case were missing. Photographs, recorded confessions, even pieces of physical evidence. Was there someone on the inside, covering for Travis? Collins and Emily uncovered a chilling truth. Owen wasn't acting alone. Across the country, a network of Travis's disciples was forming online. Radicalized, obsessed, waiting to strike. Mill Creek was only the beginning. Late at night, Emily sat down with Collins. She confessed. She had been receiving letters from Travis for months, and she never told the police. Collins' face hardened. "You've been part of his game all along." Mill Creek splintered into factions. Some believed Owen was a victim, manipulated by Travis. Others wanted the harshest punishment. For the first time, the town turned on itself. Old friends became enemies, and fear hollowed out what little trust was left. News broke: a riot inside Travis's prison. 2 guards injured, 1 inmate dead, and Travis nowhere to be found in the chaos. Emily's phone buzzed with an anonymous text. "Check your front porch." Emily opened her front door. There, taped to the railing, was a letter smeared with blood. Inside, Travis's message was short: "The town still owes me a debt." The next morning, Detective Collins was gone. Her apartment door swung open, coffee still warm on the counter. Emily's heart stopped. This wasn't over. Travis was free, and now it was personal. The town awoke to headlines. Detective Collins was missing. Her car was found abandoned near the woods, the same place where Travis once stalked his victims. Emily felt the walls closing in. This wasn't just a copycat. Travis had orchestrated everything, even from behind bars. The truth came crashing in. Travis never escaped. The prison riot was a smokescreen, coordinated by his followers on the outside. He was still locked away, but his influence had turned Mill Creek into a living nightmare. Emily's mental state frayed. She started receiving phone calls in the middle of the night, whispers on the line, echoes of Travis's voice. Her apartment was broken into, her notes scattered, her life unraveling. The line between hunter and prey blurred. Collins' badge was found nailed to the church door. Underneath, written in blood, "Judgment Day." The town panicked. Roads were barricaded, schools shut down, and Emily knew the final act was near. Emily pieced together the clues, every message, every letter, every threat. It all pointed to one location: the abandoned farmhouse outside of town, where Travis grew up. Collins was there, and so was the final reckoning. Emily and a SWAT team stormed the farmhouse. Inside, they found Collins, alive but barely conscious, tied to a chair, and standing behind her, gun in hand, was Owen. He wasn't just a follower. He was the architect of the entire second wave. Owen's calm mask cracked. "Travis gave me purpose," he whispered. "But you gave me fame." Emily realized with horror. Her reporting hadn't just chronicled the nightmare. It had amplified it. Negotiators pleaded. But when Owen raised the gun to Collins' head, Emily lunged forward, shouting, distracting him just long enough. A single shot rang out. Owen collapsed to the floor. Collins was saved. Back in prison, Travis watched the news. For the first time, his expression faltered. The cult he had built crumbled. His legacy was exposed as hollow. His last weapon, his influence, was gone. Emily visited Travis one final time. "It's over," she said quietly. He smiled faintly. "Nothing's ever over." Stay tuned for more chilling cases on Cold Case Chronicles, where the truth is always darker than fiction. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to Cold Case Chronicles. We dive deeper into the most chilling, unsolved mysteries, and together, we uncover what was left behind. Like, share, and leave a comment below. We want to hear your thoughts. Stay vigilant. Stay curious. The truth never rests.